Well, hello! It's a micro quad review today, a nice 2-incher. This came from GearBest and it's the AuroraRC Bfight Mini, or Mini Bfight. The reason I'm quite excited about this is I previously reviewed the Bfight 210, which was this one, which was actually really good and really cheap. I think at some points you could get this for like $99, which is ridiculous. Don't get me wrong, it needed a couple of mods to make it fly well, but as soon as that was done, it's actually really good. I really do like this quad a lot. So high hopes, let's see what's in the box. Alright, as this stuff was on top, I'll tell you what's in the box. We've got the normal terrible battery strap, got the now more commonplace silicone sticky pad, and a bunch of little screws, probably for the props. This is new. Gemfan seem to have cornered the market on sort of 2-inch props. These are flash 2540, so 2.5-inch props. But I've never seen a small flash ones. I think again these were flash. These other Gemfans, they worked quite well. So high hopes again. Some instructions, and in here, nicely packaged in the foam. Of course, foam you can't put the quad back in. It's got props on. Is the little. This is the little Mini Flight. It does very much look like they've taken this and shrunken it down a bit. They've even got the blue cable wraps and the little blue risers. Very similar. Let's talk about the key things on this one, because one nice thing instantly is this is a micro CCD camera on the front with a 2.1mm lens. It's not a run camera or anything. We seem to have other makes of CCD cameras, micro cameras arriving now, which is a great thing because they're just so much better than the little micro CMOS things you used to have. This has got an F3 flight controller in with inbuilt OSD. Unibodied frame, 3mm carbon, feels pretty strong. Now commonplace XT30, little linear dipole for the VTX. And it's got one of these, you know, they're not particularly good, the little compatible D8 receivers. Although I do notice they've managed to align it so the bind button is sat right in the space for the frame, so you can actually poke it with something, so you don't have to take it apart to bind it. VTX has switchable output power between 0, 25, 100 and 200 milliwatts, which is absolutely plenty for these little things. And apparently the little ESC board is 28 amp, which is huge. These motors are Sunny Sky branded, and they are 1106 5500 kV. So it said you could fly it on 2S or 3S. I think on sort of the slightly lower kV, 3S will be the way to go on this one. Yeah, there's not much to do. I'll jump into Betaflight first off, just see what's there. It's supposed to be, I think, 320, which should be fine. We'll just have a check to see if there's any tuning to do, obviously bind it up. Then we'll get the props on and we'll fly this thing. So let's just quickly hook the Mini Flight up to Betaflight and I'll show you how it's set up and what changes I made. And there was not much happening, which is good news. UART3 was set up for Serial X, which was good. And it was already set to S-Bus, as it should be, because it's got an inbuilt receiver. Motor stop was already on, which I like. 8K, 2K loop. This seems to be the default for everything I notice. Maybe it can run higher, maybe not. Who knows? We'll see how it flies on that. And of course, D-Shot 600's nicely set. Pid tuning wise, oops, haven't done this yet. Let's just zip those up to 8 quickly, because that's what I generally have. Looks like pretty much default values to fly on, so we'll try those, see how it goes. Receiver wise, it's got one of those little D8 compatible things, and they never quite fit in the range, so you need to use the RX command. I'll show you what I did in a second. Even with the full sub trims and stuff, it never quite fits on. Modes wise, yep, it had a bunch, and I just put my own in. The normal arm angle, beeper, and air mode. OSD, it had absolutely everything on, which is really annoying. You have to go all the way down here, turning things off again. And I've just put my sort of minimum stuff in the corners. Yeah, so the RX command I used, although it's gonna, or the RX range command I use, although it will change depending on your setup, probably look like this. You can see that we could set the end point okay, but the start point of the radio seemed to be a little bit out, so that just sorts that bit out. Anyway, all good, let's get on and try and fly this thing. Welcome to the field, which is over there. We're here to fly the little Mini Fight, which I'm really looking forward to, knowing how good the Bfight 210 was.
and it looks very pretty with its very distinctive blue and bits of white there. So here's hoping. We'll take it for a little line of sight hover, see how it does, and then we'll take it up for a proper FPV flight. Okay, see how this little thing does. Oh, I can hear a bit of vibration on that one. It doesn't sound very happy, does it? I feel like these motors. The angle of my camera here just puts it out of shot, but I'm feeling the motors and they're feeling very hot. But I wanted to just see what it looked like in an FPV flight, just to see if I could get some clues about a problem. So I took off here and you can see the vibrations, and straight away it's hitting low battery. But this was a battery that wasn't very good and I'd already hovered on. And I figured maybe it's just this battery, let's bring it in and we'll try again. So this is a fully charged decent battery, and nope, there's something going very wrong here when it's dipping like that into the 9 volts. And it's all going a bit crazy, and I just have to hit the disarm button. Well, that was crushingly disappointing. I was expecting great things from that, and we quite obviously had a big problem there. Getting some really weird reactions from the throttle and basically having the disarm midair and letting it bounce away. None the worse for wear there. Now the motors came back quite warm. I was thinking at first it's a balance issue, but if you noticed on the video, or at least I noticed on my live feed, the voltage doing really strange things, like that battery voltage dropping instantly. Now that doesn't happen on a freshly charged battery unless something very dodgy is going on. The last time something like this happened, and it's when the voltage seemed to go up to 30 volts, was when I had a short on the little Lizard. So let's get this back to base and check it out and see what we can find.
Okay, so as I mentioned, whenever I see a weird voltage thing like that, I worry about the motors shorting on the frame. Now what happens here if this is the case? Obviously you'd have a frame which conducts and the screws connect to the frame and they conduct, and that's absolutely fine. The problem is if the screws go up too far, touch the motor windings, and then you find that the ESC connectors also shorted out to the frame, and that's what causes the problem. So that's easy to measure with a multimeter using the continuity setting, which is very quiet here. What's going on? That on one side, that on the other. Nice beat there. So if we then hold one of these contacts on the frame, like that, and then try each of these, because this is where the ESCs, hello, that motor, its windings touching, and check this side while we're there. That's okay, that's okay. This motor. Now as I turn this over, I note something quite interesting about this. We seem to be missing a screw there and there. Now I don't know if this case this has fallen out or this was never there in the first place. I'd like to think I would recognise that if that was a problem. So one thing I'm just going to check, because obviously we've got one motor that's saying I am shorting out, which is this one, and the others aren't. So I guess the first thing I'd like to try is just, now they feel like they're tight, so they're in all the way. So I want to see if there's a difference in them. That's one from there. Let's get, it looks the same. I'm going to take these all out just to see what we've got. Well, on the face of it, the screws look the same. It could just be that the windings are slightly different on one of the motors than the other, and these are just a little bit close to the edge. In this case, rather than trying to source a different size, just putting a washer underneath each one is probably going to help us out there. Okay, so what I've done, I've just gone ahead and put in a little M2 washer under each screw there. Now, these are M2 by 5mm screws, and I didn't have any. I've just ordered some, so I've still got a space there and there, and we'll just have to kind of deal with that. It doesn't feel like it's going to come off. It should hold okay. So just to check continuity again, and we can see we've got it on the main frame. If we check each of the ESC connections, all good there. Frame. That was me just touching the, that's the USB connector I've just managed to get, and yeah, all good, and frame's good. So, 2 screws missing, but let's go out and give this a garden hover just to make sure we're not getting that big vibration thing. Hopefully it's going to feel a little bit better now.
No, I don't like that sound at all.
So as you'll hear from that noise, it still had some oscillations here, which wasn't good. But what I did do was record the footage on my Fat Sharks from the inside, and I could see from that at least the voltage wasn't dropping. So there were a few things I did, and I managed to record some of the stuff with the GoPro lens cap still on, so I'll have to just describe it. The first thing I noticed when I got in was some of this lovely blue wrap actually touched the motors, and I became a bit suspicious that this was causing perhaps a little bit of heat. So I took those off, and then it flew okay, but there was still a little bit of heat. So I messed about with the PID tuning until it would hover nice and quietly without oscillations.
Okay, take 2 of the mini fight. We've repaired the problems with the screws and motors. We've taken off the nice blue stuff so it doesn't catch, and we've done some PID tuning. So let's fly it.
Okay, so this is the maiden. I'd given it a little bit of a hover just to make sure it was still okay. And as I said, it was fine in the garden, no particular vibrations. But as soon as I got it out here and really opened up the throttle, I was getting some oscillation, and you could hear it in the noise rather than see it in the screen. If you look closely, you can see there's a little bit of vibration, but it really does quite well of hiding it. So what I did, I used this battery as it was one of my really rubbish 350 milliamp free cell batteries, which doesn't really hold its charge and sags, as a sort of tuning one. So what I did, I went up, I came down, I did a few bits of tuning, and this is what I eventually ended up with. Hopefully this might be of use to anybody else. So I dropped the P and the D right down. So this is the result of those tuning changes. Although I've just noticed I'm in stabilize mode. I accidentally took off in that when I was doing another quick hover just to double check. And this is my decent battery. This is the EA Sheen 550 3S, which is pretty good. You'll notice the low battery flashes up occasionally, although this is because it's actually set a little bit low, so it jumps in at 10.5, which these quads tend to torture the batteries a little bit too much, so that's something I'll stop. But certainly I did notice that this one really does give the battery a workout, if that's one way of saying it. Yeah, when you put the throttle down, it really does make that battery suffer. They do sag, and you know, this is a slightly bigger prop, a slightly heavier quad, which can really pull some amps. But at the same time, you'll see that it's pretty quick, it's nippy, it's agile, it's basically what you come to expect from this sort of quad. For me, it was really ripping the battery a little bit too much. I mean, this is a fairly good battery. I think it's my best 3S I've got for these micros. And this was getting tortured. It's almost like this really needs to be on 4S so you don't have to battle the volts so much. So as far as the flying goes, it did pretty well. There was still some oscillations I could hear when I really rammed the throttle on, and this is perhaps a case of me going to look at the TPA, which I hadn't touched, so that's on default. So it seems to me that under duress we'll still get those oscillations. This is pretty odd, as most things do tend to fly pretty well out of the default tune, and this has already needed some messing about doing to it, and it feels to me like it still needs a little bit more. But the gist of it is there. It's got its base of flying, and it's doing okay. I should point out that I thought the camera was pretty nice. This is pretty much a no-name micro CCD camera. It's a very dim and gloomy day today, but it's handling the light conditions really quite nicely. This is where the old little CMOS all-in-one cameras really did suffer. You just couldn't see any difference. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still tricky to pick out little bits of twig and that as you're going through here. I really do look forward to the time when the leaves are back on the tree, so I have more of a chance of seeing things, but you know, that's what we got. I was a little bit cautious at start when I was doing my laps. I wasn't going the full way to the field because I just had one of these little D8 compatible receivers in. But it did fine. It got to the end of the field, and I think that's about, from where I'm standing, about 150 to 180 metres. So that's fine for this sort of quad. I generally wouldn't fly these little ones far away. They're kind of a close in, have a fun job. But yeah, I put some more batteries through it, and it did well. It just stripped the batteries very quickly. That's the main thing I took away from it.
I'm a little bit on the fence here. I want to love this one because I really do love its big brother. It flies beautifully. This, we got off to a bad start. We had some problems which we had to fix up. I still don't think I've got the best tune. I think I need to go in and mess with the TPA, because although it's nice and gentle and quiet on a sort of hover, as soon as we give it some welly, we get that vibration again. So I think it needs sorting. On the positive side of things, very fast, very agile, will absolutely zip about the field, and even though it's got one of these little rubbish D8 things, that was getting around sort of 180 to 200 metres with no problems, and going behind some stuff, all fine, flies nice. I think the downside of this is that aside from the fact I haven't got the tune right, and it was the default as it was really quite bad, it still strips the battery really quickly. My batteries aren't the best, but I can fly them in other 3S quads and they're okay. This is not quite as small as it says it is. It's supposed to be 110. When I measure it motor to motor with my ruler, I get about a 125, which is bigger than 110. And it's like frame size is, over 130. If I compare that against, this is a QAV 105, which itself is more like 110. If I line up the motor at the bottom, you can see how much taller the overall quad is. And it just sort of struck me that when you're getting into this bigger frame, and obviously heavier, then it's going to take more power, and that's probably the reason for the the battery going down. So it's not outperforming like a pure micro like this 90mm, and you can see the difference in size here. And it sort of led me to think that if you're going up to this size, should you just carry on going to get yourself a 3-inch? If I put these side by side there, obviously there's more bulk to this. This is the GearBest Sparrow, but it's not that much more. And it sort of, because the battery was stripping so quickly, I was thinking maybe you want to go up to 4S and fly something 3-inch. And this is absolutely fantastic, the Sparrow. See, my problem is I'm pretty lazy. I like things to fly nicely on the default PIDs. This is actually the first quad I've had in a while where the default PIDs really caused an issue. Normally speaking, the defaults in Betaflight, a late version, will be fine, and the stuff will fly fine. If you want to go and tune it really nicely, you want to go in and do little changes, but they're all fine. This really tried to shake itself apart and burn the motors up, so that's a little weird, and it still needs some more work. So it's got potential to be great, but I still think it's going to rip the batteries apart. On the other hand, QAV 105 flew lovely from the get-go, even though it was 2S. The Diatone GT90R or GTR90 had some tunes built into it which were really nice and very smooth as soon as you got rid of the horrible Diatone props. So it fits into an uncomfortable in-between position. It's not quite a micro, but it's not quite up on 3-inch, and it's kind of like, do you want this size or not? I don't know. I'm still on the fence a little bit. I'm going to work a little bit more on the tune, take it out some more, give it some more flights, see what I can do with it. It's a good, nice flying quad. I just think it's an in-betweener. It's not quite in the micro, and it's not quite in the 3-inch. It's like the uncomfortable middle child, if you like. But there you go. I'll let you take a look at the footage, and you can make your mind up if it's the sort of thing you like. Of course, big thanks to GearBest for sending this for review, and there will be links of this one and the other ones I mentioned down below. Until next time, I'll catch you later. Bye for now.
Well, you've made it to the end of the video, so thanks once again for watching. If you like what you saw, then please consider subscribing, and if you really like what you saw, then be sure to check out the link to my blog for a variety of ways in which you can help support this channel.